Have you ever looked at the pyramids and just thought, how? It's a question that has baffled people for centuries. These colossal structures didn't just appear out of the sand. They are the ultimate symbols of a civilization that rose from the banks of a single, life-giving river. To truly understand the pyramids, we need to go back, way back, to before the first stone was ever laid. Imagine a time, over 5,000 years ago. The land we know as Egypt wasn't a single, unified kingdom. It was a patchwork of communities to distinct realms known as Upper and Lower Egypt. Upper Egypt, in the south, was a long, narrow valley. Lower Egypt, in the north, was the vast, fan-shaped delta where the Nile River meets the Mediterranean Sea. For centuries, these two lands had their own rulers, their own traditions, and their own gods. They were neighbors, sometimes rivals, but they were not one. This is where the true hero of Egypt's story enters the scene, the Nile River. The ancient Greek historian Herodotus famously called Egypt the gift of the Nile, and he couldn't have been more right. Every year, like clockwork, the Nile would flood its banks. This wasn't a destructive, chaotic flood, it was a predictable, gentle inundation. As the water swelled from summer rains in the highlands of Ethiopia, they would spread across the floodplain, depositing a thick, rich layer of black silt. This silt was incredibly fertile, a natural fertilizer that renewed the land year after year. When the waters receded, they left behind a farmer's paradise. The Egyptians called their country Kemet, which means the Black Land, named after this dark, life-giving soil. Outside this narrow strip of black land was the Desert, the Red Land, the vast, barren desert. This annual miracle of the Nile meant that Egyptian agriculture was astonishingly productive. The Egyptians believed that the Pharaoh's journey in the afterlife was crucial for the continued prosperity and stability of the entire kingdom. If the pharaoh successfully navigated the underworld and joined the gods, he would continue to ensure the Nile flooded, the sun rose, and Egypt remained protected. His tomb, therefore, wasn't just a personal burial place. It was a machine for resurrection, an eternal home that guaranteed not only his immortality, but the immortality of Egyptian civilization itself. Building a pyramid was an act of national importance, a sacred duty. It was a way for the people to contribute to maintaining the cosmic order. This belief system provided the ultimate motivation. It transformed the monumental task of quarrying, transporting, and lifting millions of stone blocks from a simple construction project into a profound act of religious devotion. The pharaoh was the link between heaven and earth, and his pyramid was the stairway that would ensure that link remained unbroken for all eternity. It was this potent combination: a unified state, incredible wealth from the Nile, and a powerful religious belief in the divinity of the king that created the perfect storm. The stage was set, the resources were gathered. The will was there. All that was needed was the vision to turn a simple tomb into something the world had never seen before. The age of the pyramid builders was about to begin. Thank you for watching, and be sure to subscribe for the next chapter in our journey through ancient Egypt.
History isn't just what happened, it's what was hidden. Welcome to the Chrono Archives, where lost empires rise again, forgotten legends speak, and ancient truths are brought back to life. From world-shaping history and powerful myths to legendary rulers and timeless civilizations, every story here is carefully uncovered, deeply researched, and cinematically told. The past is calling, will you answer? Subscribe and journey through time, one unforgettable chronicle at a time.
Before the legendary Pyramids of Giza pierced the sky, one monument and one man changed the course of history forever. This is the story of where it all began, not with a perfect triangle, but with a staircase to the heavens. Welcome to Saqqara, the sprawling necropolis that served the ancient capital of Memphis. For centuries, Egyptian pharaohs were buried in mastabas, flat-roofed, rectangular structures made of mud brick. They were impressive for their time, but they were earthly. They lacked the divine permanence that a king desired for his journey into the afterlife. Then, around 2670 BC, a new pharaoh took the throne, Djoser. He was a powerful ruler of the Third Dynasty, but his greatest legacy wouldn't be a military conquest or a political reform. It would be the monument he built for eternity. And he couldn't have done it without his right-hand man, a figure so brilliant he would later be deified himself, Imhotep. Imhotep wasn't just a vizier or a high priest. He was a true polymath, a physician, a scribe, and an architect of unparalleled genius. He was the Leonardo da Vinci of ancient Egypt. Djoser entrusted Imhotep with the most important project of his reign, his tomb. But Imhotep wasn't content with just another mudbrick mastaba. He had a revolutionary idea: stone. The Egyptians had used stone for elements like doorways and flooring, but no one had ever conceived of building an entire structure from it. Imhotep envisioned a monument that would not only last forever, but would also visually represent the pharaoh's ascent to the gods. His initial plan started simply enough: a large, square stone mastaba, a more durable version of the traditional tomb. But he didn't stop there. He wasn't satisfied. He placed a slightly smaller mastaba on top of the first one. And then another on top of that, and another, and another, and another. 6 stages in total, each smaller than the one below it, creating a tiered structure that rose over 200 feet into the air. It was a stairway, a literal, stone stairway for the pharaoh's soul to climb into the celestial realm and join the eternal stars. This was the step pyramid. It was a complete departure from everything that had come before. Think about the leap in technology and logistics. They went from stacking sun-dried mud bricks to quarrying, transporting, and lifting millions of tons of limestone blocks. This wasn't just a new design, it was the birth of monumental stone architecture. Imhotep had to invent the techniques as he went. He organized massive workforces, developed new tools for quarrying and shaping the stone, and devised methods for lifting heavy blocks to staggering heights. He was essentially writing the rulebook for pyramid construction that builders would follow for centuries. But the pyramid itself was just the centerpiece. Imhotep designed an entire complex around it, spanning nearly 40 acres. He enclosed the whole area with a massive limestone wall, 10.5 meters high. Inside this enclosure, he built a stunning world of dummy buildings, chapels, courts, and temples. There was the grand entrance colonnade, with 40 elegant columns carved to look like bundles of plant stems, one of the first known uses of stone columns in history. There was the Hebsed court, a space for the king to perform a ritual jubilee run, magically renewing his power for all eternity. Many of these structures were dummy buildings, solid facades with no interior space. They weren't meant for living people. They were eternal models, a perfect, unchanging version of the royal palace, and ceremonial courts for the pharaoh's spirit to use in the afterlife. The entire complex was a stone replica of the mortal world, built to function for an immortal king. It was a city for the dead, a blueprint for paradise. Beneath the pyramid, a labyrinth of tunnels and chambers stretched for nearly 6 kilometers. At the very bottom, almost 100 feet down, was the king's burial chamber, lined with granite. This subterranean world was filled with storerooms that held thousands of stone vessels, some inscribed with the names of pharaohs from even earlier dynasties. It was as if Djoser was gathering all of Egypt's history to take with him into eternity. The walls of some tunnels were even decorated with beautiful blue faience tiles, meant to imitate the reed mat walls of the king's earthly palace, frozen forever in an ethereal blue-green glow. The step pyramid wasn't just a tomb, it was a statement. It declared the pharaoh's divine status in a way no mud brick mastaba ever could. Its tiered shape broke the flat horizon, creating a man-made mountain that connected the earth with the heavens. It was a testament to the power of a centralized state that could command such vast resources and manpower. And it was a monument to the genius of one man, Imhotep, who dared to dream in stone. This incredible innovation at Saqqara set the stage for the next phase of pyramid building. Architects would soon learn to fill in the steps, creating the smooth, true pyramids we see at places like Medum and Dahshur, culminating in the Great Pyramids of Giza. But it all started here. Every block of limestone at Giza owes its legacy to the first, audacious steps taken by Djoser and Imhotep. The step pyramid is not just the first pyramid. It is the first great stone building on Earth, the architectural prototype that would define ancient Egypt and inspire awe for millennia. It is the original blueprint for eternity. Thanks for joining us on this journey back in time. If you were amazed by the story of Imhotep's genius, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into the wonders of the ancient world. See you next as we explore the building of the pyramid. Imagine standing in the vast Egyptian desert. The year is roughly 2580 BC. Before you rises the most ambitious construction project the world has ever seen. This is the story of how the Great Pyramid of Giza, a wonder of the ancient world, was built. This isn't just a tale of stones and sand. It's a testament to human ingenuity, organization, and sheer willpower that continues to baffle us thousands of years later. At the heart of this colossal undertaking was one man, Pharaoh Khufu, known to the Greeks as Cheops. As the ruler of Egypt's Old Kingdom, Khufu desired a tomb that would not only secure his place in the afterlife, but also stand as an eternal symbol of his power and divine status. He wasn't just building a tomb, he was building a legacy, a stairway to heaven that would connect him with the sun god Ra. His vision would mobilize an entire nation and push the boundaries of what was thought possible. For centuries, Hollywood and popular myths had painted a picture of thousands of slaves toiling under the whip. But modern archaeology and historical records tell a very different and far more fascinating story. The builders of the pyramid were not slaves. They were skilled Egyptian laborers, farmers who worked on the project during the Nile's annual flood when their fields were underwater. They were organized, well-fed, and respected for their craft. Evidence from the workers' village discovered near the pyramids shows they ate prime cuts of beef, received medical care, and were buried in honored tombs near their pharaoh. This was a national project, a source of pride. Think of it like a medieval cathedral construction, where generations of craftsmen dedicated their lives. These workers were divided into crews with names like Friends of Khufu or Drunkards of Menkaure, showing a sense of team spirit and camaraderie. They were motivated citizens, not forced labor. So, how did they pull it off without modern machinery? It all started at the quarries. The bulk of the pyramid, over 2 million limestone blocks, came from a large quarry just south of the pyramid itself. But the outer casing, the beautiful, polished white limestone that made the pyramid gleam in the sun, was brought from Tura, across the Nile. The massive granite beams for the inner chambers, some weighing up to 80 tons, were transported from Aswan, over 500 miles away. To cut these massive stones, the Egyptians used copper tools, like chisels and saws. Now, copper is a relatively soft metal, so how did they cut hard granite? They likely used an abrasive, like quartz sand, along with the copper tools. They'd patiently saw back and forth, letting the hard sand do the real cutting work. It was a slow, laborious process, but with enough manpower and time, it was incredibly effective. Once a block was quarried, the real challenge began, moving it. These blocks, averaging 2.5 tons each, were loaded onto massive wooden sleds. To make it easier to pull these heavy sleds across the sand, workers likely poured water on the sand in front of them. This simple trick reduced friction dramatically, allowing smaller teams of men to haul unimaginable weights. It's a perfect example of their clever, practical engineering solutions. Now for the biggest question of all. How did they lift these blocks to the top of a structure that would eventually stand nearly 500 feet tall? The answer lies in ramps. While we don't know the exact design, the leading theory is that they used a system of ramps. It might have been a long, straight ramp that grew with the pyramid, or more likely, a spiral ramp that corkscrewed around the outside of the structure. Imagine thousands of workers, organized in teams, hauling these giant stones up the ramps, chanting in unison. As the pyramid grew higher, the ramp grew with it. Other theories suggest an internal ramp system, or perhaps even a combination of different ramp types. Whatever the method, it required incredible coordination and planning. The logistics alone are mind-boggling, a constant stream of blocks, food, water, and tools, all moving in a perfectly choreographed construction dance. But the genius of the Great Pyramid isn't just in its size, it's in its precision. This structure is an astronomical masterpiece. The four sides of its base are aligned almost perfectly with the four cardinal points, north, south, east, and west. The deviation is less than 1/10 of a degree. How did they achieve this without a compass? They were master astronomers. They likely tracked the movement of stars, using sighting instruments to find true north. By observing a single star as it rose and set, they could bisect the angle of its arc to find a perfect north-south line. This level of accuracy, achieved with simple tools and keen observation, is staggering. The entire foundation was leveled to within an inch of a perfectly flat plane. Every stone was placed with a purpose and a precision that would challenge even modern builders. As the final capstone, possibly covered in gold or electrum, was placed atop the pyramid, the work wasn't over. The entire structure was then encased in highly polished white Tura limestone. These casing stones were fitted so perfectly that you couldn't even slide a knife blade between them. The pyramid would have been a smooth, gleaming white monument, reflecting the desert sun like a brilliant jewel, a true beacon of power and divinity. Over the centuries, earthquakes and stone quarrying for later buildings stripped away most of this beautiful outer layer, revealing the stepped core we see today. But for 1,000 years, it stood as a smooth, shining wonder. The construction of the Great Pyramid of Giza took roughly 20 years and involved a workforce of around 20,000 to 30,000 people. It was a project of unparalleled scale, a triumph of human organization, engineering, and belief. It wasn't built by aliens or a lost civilization. It was built by the ancient Egyptians, by skilled workers who poured their sweat, ingenuity, and spirit into creating an eternal monument for their king and their gods. The next time you see a picture of the pyramids, don't just see a pile of old stones. See the quarries buzzing with activity, the sleds gliding over wet sand, the ramps teeming with workers, and the astronomers gazing at the night sky. See the greatest engineering project of the ancient world, a story of human achievement that continues to inspire awe and wonder to this day. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this journey back in time, be sure to like, subscribe, and follow for more stories from our incredible past. Now we shall explore inside the pyramid. Have you ever wondered what truly lies inside the Great Pyramid of Giza? We're not talking about dusty old rooms, but a marvel of engineering designed with sacred purpose, a cosmic machine built to launch a pharaoh's soul into the stars. Forget everything you thought you knew. Today, we're going inside. Our journey begins in a narrow, ascending passage, barely tall enough to stand in. It's cramped, it's dark, and you can feel the immense weight of millions of stone blocks above you. For ancient explorers, this was a daunting climb, a test of will. But after about 150 feet, the space suddenly explodes upwards. We've arrived at the Grand Gallery. This is one of the most astonishing and, frankly, baffling structures in the ancient world. It's a corridor, yes, but it soars nearly 30 feet high. The walls are made of polished limestone, angled perfectly inward, creating a corbelled vault that is an absolute masterpiece of construction. It feels less like a hallway and more like the nave of a magnificent stone cathedral. Why build something so massive, so elaborate, deep inside a solid pyramid? Mainstream Egyptology suggests it was part of a sophisticated system to move the massive granite blocks needed for the chamber above. But the sheer scale and precision feel like they're shouting a different story, one of immense ceremonial importance. You can almost hear the echoes of ancient rituals, the chanting of priests, as they prepared the king for his final journey. The air here feels different, charged with history. At the top of the Grand Gallery, we must crouch low to enter the heart of the pyramid, the king's chamber. The transition is dramatic. You leave the soaring limestone gallery and enter a room of pure, red Aswan granite. The shift in material is jarring and deliberate. The walls, the floor, the ceiling, all massive, precisely cut granite blocks, some weighing up to 70 tons. The level of craftsmanship is staggering. The joints between these colossal stones are so fine you can even slip a piece of paper between them. How did they achieve this 4,500 years ago with copper tools? It's a question that still baffles engineers today. The chamber is stark, unadorned, with no hieroglyphs or paintings on its walls. It's a room built for a single, solemn purpose. And in the center sits its sole occupant, a large, lidless granite sarcophagus. It's bigger than the entrance to the chamber, which means it must have been placed here as the pyramid was being built around it. It's chipped and weathered by time and tourists, but its presence is powerful. This was the final vessel for Pharaoh Khufu, or was it? When modern explorers first entered, it was empty. Was it robbed in antiquity, its treasures and mummies stolen thousands of years ago? Or was it never intended to hold a body at all? Some theories suggest the entire chamber and the sarcophagus itself served a different, more esoteric function, perhaps as a resonance chamber or an instrument for a spiritual ceremony. The mystery of the empty sarcophagus is one of the pyramid's most enduring enigmas. But the secrets don't end there. Extending from the north and south walls of the king's chamber are two narrow shafts, just a few inches wide. For centuries, they were thought to be for ventilation. But that makes no sense. Why would a sealed tomb for the dead need air? In the 1960s, a breakthrough discovery was made. These aren't air shafts, they're star shafts. The southern shaft points directly to the constellation of Orion, which the ancient Egyptians associated with the god Osiris, the ruler of the afterlife. The northern shaft points to the circumpolar stars, the undying stars that never set. The pyramid wasn't just a tomb, it was an astronomical instrument, a launch pad. The idea was that the pharaoh's soul could travel through these shafts to ascend to the heavens, joining Osiris and becoming an eternal star. A similar pair of shafts exists in the Queen's chamber below, pointing to Sirius and Ursa Minor, further cementing this cosmic connection. These shafts transform the pyramid from a static monument into a dynamic machine for resurrection. So, if this was the pharaoh's path to eternity, why was it sealed? Once the king was interred, or the rituals were complete, the pyramid was meant to be sealed forever. Massive granite plugs were slid down the ascending corridor, blocking access to the upper chambers. The original entrance was hidden and disguised. The pyramid was to become an impenetrable, solid mountain of stone, protecting its secrets and its sacred purpose for all time. The builders didn't want visitors. They were creating a permanent, inviolable link between the earth and the cosmos, a place where the line between life and death blurred, and a mortal king could become an immortal god. What we see today, the tunnels we used to enter, were actually forced by tomb raiders centuries later. We are walking in the footsteps of those who broke the seal. When you piece it all together, the Grand Gallery's cathedral-like grandeur, the granite precision of the king's chamber, the star-aligned shafts, and the final, absolute sealing of the structure, a profound picture emerges. The Great Pyramid is more than a tomb. It is a resurrection machine, a marvel of sacred geometry, and a testament to a civilization that aimed for nothing less than eternity. The questions it poses are as massive as the stones it's built from, and they continue to inspire awe and wonder in all who dare to look inside. Thanks for joining me on this incredible journey deep within the Great Pyramid. If you found this as fascinating as I do, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you don't miss our next adventure. What do you think was the true purpose of the king's chamber? Let me know in the comments below. See you next as we explore the pharaohs behind the stones. We often look at the Great Pyramids of Giza and see massive, mysterious tombs. But what if I told you they were something more? They weren't just final resting places. They were eternal declarations of power, divinity, and a legacy carved in stone by the pharaohs who built them. Today, we're uncovering the stories of the men behind these wonders: Khufu, Khafre, and Menkaure. Let's start with the big one, the Great Pyramid, built for a pharaoh named Khufu. When Khufu came to the throne around 2589 BCE, Egypt was already a powerful kingdom. But Khufu had ambitions that towered over everything that came before. He didn't just want a tomb. He wanted a monument that would shout his connection to the gods from the Giza Plateau for all eternity. The Great Pyramid wasn't built by slaves, as old myths suggest, but by a dedicated workforce of skilled Egyptian laborers. These weren't just builders. They were participants in a national project, a testament to the pharaoh's divine authority and his ability to command the resources of an entire nation. The sheer scale is staggering: over 2 million limestone blocks, some weighing as much as an elephant. This wasn't just construction. It was a logistical miracle, a statement that Khufu's power was absolute, capable of moving mountains, quite literally. His pyramid was designed to be a stairway to heaven, a machine for his soul's ascension to join the sun god Ra in his daily journey across the sky. For Khufu, this was his gateway to immortality. Next in this powerful lineage was Khufu's son, Khafre. Imagine the pressure of following in your father's footsteps when his legacy is the largest pyramid on Earth. Khafre rose to the challenge. His pyramid, though slightly smaller, was built on higher ground, creating the clever illusion that it was taller than his father's. It's a classic case of one-upmanship, a son trying to both honor and surpass his father. But Khafre's most enduring legacy isn't just his pyramid. He is credited with the creation of one of the most iconic statues in human history, the Great Sphinx. Carved from a single, massive limestone outcrop, the Sphinx has the body of a lion and the head of a king, believed to be a portrait of Khafre himself. It stands as an eternal guardian, a sentinel watching over the Giza necropolis. It's a fusion of human intelligence and animal strength, symbolizing the pharaoh's divine wisdom and raw power. The Sphinx wasn't just a statue, it was the embodiment of the king as a living god on earth, a protector of his sacred burial ground. Following Khafre was his son, Menkaure. By the time Menkaure took the throne, the era of colossal pyramid building was beginning to wane. His pyramid is significantly smaller than those of his father and grandfather. But don't mistake its smaller size for a lack of ambition. Instead, Menkaure's project reveals a shift in focus. The resources poured into his pyramid complex were directed differently. While the pyramid itself was smaller, the mortuary temple built beside it was more elaborate and finished with incredibly fine details, using expensive materials like red granite imported from Aswan, hundreds of miles to the south. This suggests a change in religious priorities. The focus was moving from the sheer size of the tomb to the complexity and richness of the religious rituals that would be performed in the temples for eternity. Menkaure's legacy shows us that power wasn't just about building the biggest monument. It was also about ensuring the perpetual worship and divine rights that guaranteed his eternal life. His pyramid, though the smallest of the three, is famous for the stunning statues found within its complex, depicting him with his queen and various deities, reinforcing his divine status in a more intimate, artistic way. Together, these three pyramids tell a story that spans nearly a century. They represent a family dynasty, each generation adding its own chapter to the Giza Plateau. They show us a fascinating evolution in both engineering and religious belief. But the pyramids themselves were only the centerpieces of much larger complexes. Each one was connected to a mortuary temple at its base, where priests would perform daily rituals and leave offerings for the deceased king. From these temples, long, covered causeways stretched out, sometimes for nearly a kilometer, leading down to a valley temple on the banks of the Nile or a nearby canal. These causeways were like sacred corridors, decorated with intricate carvings depicting the pharaoh's triumphs and his connection to the gods. The valley temple acted as a grand entrance, the gateway from the world of the living to the sacred realm of the dead. When the pharaoh's body arrived by boat, it would be received here before making its final journey up the causeway to the pyramid. This entire complex pyramid, temples, causeway, and the Sphinx was a carefully orchestrated machine designed to launch the pharaoh's soul into the afterlife and sustain it for eternity. So, when we look at the pyramids of Khufu, Khafre, and Menkaure, we're not just seeing tombs. We're seeing powerful political statements, sophisticated religious engines, and the enduring legacy of a royal family that literally changed the landscape of the earth to secure their place among the gods. They transformed the Giza Plateau from a simple burial ground into a grand stage for their journey into eternity, a place where stone itself was made to speak of divine power. The pharaohs behind the stones weren't just burying their dead. They were building their own heaven on earth. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey back in time. If you enjoyed this exploration of ancient Egypt, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more stories from history. We'll see you in the next as we explore the mysteries, myths, and lost knowledge of the pyramids. Have you ever looked at the Great Pyramids of Giza and just wondered, how? For thousands of years, these colossal structures have stood as a testament to human ingenuity, but they hold secrets that still baffle the brightest minds today. We're going to journey back in time, not to rehash what you learned in history class, but to explore the mind-bending mysteries that remain unsolved. Forget what you think you know, because what we don't know is far more fascinating. Let us start with the biggest question of all. How on earth did they move those massive stones? We're talking about millions of limestone and granite blocks, some weighing as much as 80 tons. That's like lifting 12 elephants at once. The mainstream theory, for a long time, involved thousands of workers dragging these blocks up enormous ramps. It sounds plausible, right? But when you do the math, the size of the ramps needed would have been almost as massive an undertaking as the pyramids themselves. Some engineers even argue that a straight ramp to the top would have been a mile long. So, what are the other ideas? One clever theory suggests an internal ramp, a spiral corkscrew inside the pyramid itself. This would have been way more efficient, saving materials and effort. Imagine workers hauling stones up a hidden, internal roadway. We've even found some potential evidence for this with modern scanning technology, showing intriguing anomalies and voids inside the structure. It's a compelling idea, but we're still searching for that definitive proof. Another fascinating proposal involves water. We know the Nile was much closer to the Giza plateau back then. Could the ancient Egyptians have built a system of canals and locks, essentially floating the blocks right to the base of the construction site? Recent archaeological discoveries have actually unearthed an ancient harbor near the pyramids, lending a lot of weight to this theory. They might have even used a simple but brilliant trick, wetting the sand in front of the sleds. Studies have shown that the right amount of water on sand can cut the pulling force in half. It's a perfect example of ancient genius, using simple physics to achieve the impossible. But moving the stones is only half the battle. Let's talk about the precision. The Great Pyramid is aligned to true north with an accuracy that is, frankly, astonishing. We're talking about an alignment within a fraction of a single degree. How did they achieve this without a compass, GPS, or modern surveying equipment? The most likely method involves the stars. By tracking the movement of a star and bisecting the angle of its rising and setting, they could have found a near-perfect north. Imagine ancient astronomers, night after night, meticulously charting the heavens to lay the foundation for an eternal monument. The level of planning and knowledge required is just staggering. And it doesn't stop there. The dimensions of the pyramid are a mathematician's dream. If you take the height of the pyramid and multiply it by 2 pi, you get the perimeter of its base. This suggests the Egyptians knew the value of pi thousands of years before it was supposedly discovered by the Greeks. Coincidence? Maybe, but when you find these mathematical relationships repeated over and over, you start to wonder. The pyramid isn't just a pile of rocks, it's a carefully encoded piece of geometry, a message written in the language of mathematics. Now, let's address the elephant in the room, or rather, the aliens. The idea that extraterrestrials built the pyramids is one of the most persistent myths out there. It's an exciting thought, but it does a huge disservice to the incredible achievements of the ancient Egyptians. We have found their workers' villages, their tools, their bakeries, even their payrolls recorded on papyrus. These were real people, highly organized and incredibly skilled, working on a national project of immense pride. Attributing their work to aliens simply because we find it hard to comprehend is a failure of our own imagination, not theirs. Similarly, the popular image of slaves being whipped as they haul stones is largely a Hollywood invention. Evidence suggests the builders were skilled laborers, not slaves. They were well-fed, received medical care, and were buried with honor near the pyramids they built. This was a prestigious job, a way to serve their king and their gods. It was a project that united a nation. Another myth we need to bust is the curse of the Pharaohs. The idea of a deadly curse protecting the tombs became famous after Howard Carter discovered Tutankhamun's tomb in the 1920s. When some members of his expedition died in the following years, the media went wild. But in reality, there was no curse. Most of the expedition members lived long, full lives. The curse was more likely a combination of sensationalist journalism and perhaps exposure to ancient, dormant fungi or bacteria sealed within the tomb. It makes for a great story, but the truth is far less supernatural. Perhaps one of the most tantalizing mysteries is what's missing. Look at the very top of the Great Pyramid. It's flat. It's believed that it was once crowned with a capstone, known as a pyramidion. This capstone was likely made of a precious metal like electrum, an alloy of gold and silver, and would have blazed in the sun, a beacon visible for miles. So, where is it? Was it stolen by treasure hunters thousands of years ago? Was it destroyed by an earthquake? Or was it never placed there at all? No one knows for sure. The absence of the capstone leaves a literal and figurative question mark at the very peak of this architectural wonder. What would it have looked like, shining under the Egyptian sun? We can only imagine. As we use new technology like cosmochrome wand scanning to peer inside the pyramids without moving a single stone, we're on the verge of new discoveries. We've already found a huge, mysterious void above the Grand Gallery of space as large as a passenger jet. What is its purpose? Is it a hidden chamber, a structural feature, or something else entirely? Every answer we find seems to lead to more profound questions. The Great Pyramid of Giza is more than just a tomb. It's a time capsule of knowledge, a puzzle box built on a colossal scale. It reminds us that there are still great mysteries left in the world, things that defy easy explanation. It challenges us to think bigger, to question our assumptions, and to appreciate the boundless potential of human creativity. The people who built it may be long gone, but their legacy and their secrets are set in stone, waiting for us to uncover them. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the unknown. If you're as fascinated by these ancient mysteries as I am, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into the world's greatest enigmas. Let me know in the comments which pyramid theory you find most convincing, and until next time, keep questioning. Now let us explore life around the pyramid complex. When you picture the Great Pyramids, what do you see? Massive, silent monuments standing alone in the desert, right? For centuries, that's the image we've all had. But what if I told you that was completely wrong? The pyramids weren't isolated tombs. They were the beating heart of a vibrant, living city, teeming with thousands of people. Today, we're peeling back the sands of time to reveal the bustling world that grew in the shadow of these ancient wonders. Forget the quiet desert, we're stepping into the noisy, energetic, and surprisingly modern metropolis of the pyramid builders. Let's start with the people who built them. For a long time, the popular theory was that slaves built the pyramids. But groundbreaking archaeological discoveries have completely shattered that myth. We found entire villages near the Giza Plateau, complete with houses, bakeries, and even medical facilities. These were the homes of skilled Egyptian workers, not slaves. They were organized, well-fed, and respected for their craft. Imagine a town specifically built for the greatest construction project in human history. That's what we're talking about. These weren't just temporary camps. They were permanent settlements with families, markets, and a real sense of community. So, what was daily life like for these workers? Let's talk about their diet. Forget gruel and water. Archaeologists have uncovered massive bakeries and breweries capable of producing thousands of loaves of bread and gallons of beer every single day. Bread and beer were the staples of the Egyptian diet, serving as both food and payment. Think of it like a company town, where your salary is paid in carbs and good times. We've found bones from cattle, sheep, and goats, showing that these workers were eating a lot of high-quality protein. This wasn't the diet of an oppressed workforce. This was the fuel for a nation's ambition. These people were well-fed because the pharaoh knew a strong workforce was a productive one. Now, building a pyramid is a bit more complicated than just stacking big rocks. It required incredible organization. The workforce was divided into specialized teams. You had the quarrymen, who cut the massive limestone and granite blocks directly from the earth. Then, the transport crews, who ingeniously moved these multi-ton stones across the desert and up the pyramid's ramps. And finally, the master builders and stone setters, who placed each block with astonishing precision. Overseeing it all was a complex bureaucracy of scribes. These were the project managers of the ancient world. They kept meticulous records of everything, worker attendance, food rations, tool inventories, and progress reports. We found their notes on fragments of pottery and papyrus, giving us a direct window into how this monumental task was managed. It was a logistical masterpiece, a true testament to Egyptian ingenuity, but it wasn't all work and no play. Life in the workers' village was surprisingly rich. This was a community. People fell in love, raised families, and celebrated together. We found evidence of religious festivals and ceremonies held right there in the shadow of the pyramids. These events would have been a vibrant mix of music, dance, and feasting, bringing the entire community together to honor their gods and the pharaoh. Imagine a festival at the base of the rising pyramid, a celebration of their collective effort and divine purpose. These weren't just laborers, they were participants in a project that defined their civilization, and they took immense pride in their work. This communal spirit was essential for maintaining morale during a project that could span decades. Beyond the core construction teams, a whole ecosystem of artisans and craftsmen thrived. Think of it as the ultimate supply chain. There were potters making jars to hold water and beer. Toolmakers forged and sharpened the copper chisels needed to carve stone. Weavers produced linen for clothing and sails. And of course, there were the elite artists and sculptors who created the stunning statues, intricate reliefs, and beautiful hieroglyphs that adorned the temples and tombs connected to the pyramids. Each of these crafts was a vital part of the larger pyramid project. A scribe couldn't record inventory without papyrus and ink, and a stonecutter couldn't work without a sharp chisel. It was a complex, interconnected economy, all centered on the singular goal of building an eternal home for their king. We've found skeletons of workers with broken bones that have been properly set and healed. This tells us they had access to sophisticated medical care. Doctors, or some as they were known, were on hand to treat injuries. This level of care is another huge piece of evidence that these were valued citizens, not disposable slaves. The state invested in keeping its workforce healthy and able to work. It's a side of ancient Egypt we rarely consider, not just the magic and mystery, but the practical, human-centered systems they developed. They understood that their greatest resource was their people. So, when we look at the Giza Plateau, we need to adjust our vision. Don't just see the three giant pyramids. Picture the sprawling city that surrounded them. Imagine the smoke rising from hundreds of bakery ovens, the rhythmic chanting of workers hauling massive stones, the sharp tap-tap-tap of sculptors' chisels, and the laughter of children playing in the streets. This wasn't a desolate graveyard, it was a thriving metropolitan center, a hub of innovation, community, and national pride. The pyramids are not just tombs, they are the epicenters of a lost city that we are only now beginning to truly understand. The real wonder of the pyramids isn't just how they were built, but the incredible society that built them. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey back in time. If you found this as fascinating as I do, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into the ancient world. Let me know in the comments what aspect of this lost city surprises you the most. We'll see you in the next one as we explore the end of the Pyramid Age. Have you ever stood in awe, even just in pictures, of the Great Pyramids of Giza? These colossal structures have baffled and fascinated humanity for millennia. They are the ultimate symbols of ancient Egypt, monuments to the power and divinity of the pharaohs. But have you ever wondered why, after centuries of building bigger and better pyramids, the Egyptians just stopped? The Pyramid Age didn't last forever. The last great royal pyramid was built almost 1,000 years after the first one. So, what happened? Why did the greatest architectural tradition in the ancient world suddenly come to an end? The answer isn't a single event, but a complex mix of economics, security, and a profound shift in religious beliefs that changed Egypt forever. Let's uncover the secrets behind the end of the Pyramid Age. First, let's talk about the most straightforward reason: the staggering cost. Building a pyramid was the ancient equivalent of a modern-day moonshot program, but one that lasted for decades. Imagine the resources required. We're talking about tens of thousands of skilled laborers, not slaves as is often believed, but paid workers who needed to be housed, fed, and clothed. They were quarrying millions of massive stone blocks, some weighing several tons, and transporting them across great distances. This required an immense logistical network, a highly organized state bureaucracy, and a ton of money. The pharaoh had to command a surplus of grain, copper tools, wood, and of course, manpower. For early pharaohs like Khufu, Khafre, and Menkaure during the Old Kingdom, the state was strong, centralized, and the economy was booming. They could afford it, but over time, this kind of expenditure puts a tremendous strain on the national treasury. As generations passed, a series of weaker pharaohs, periods of drought, and political instability meant that the resources simply weren't there anymore. Building a mountain of stone was a luxury Egypt could no longer afford. The later pyramids are noticeably smaller and often built with less durable materials, like mud brick instead of solid limestone, a clear sign that the budget had been slashed. The economic well had started to run dry. But even if you could afford to build a pyramid, you had another, even more pressing problem: security. A pyramid was essentially a giant, flashing neon sign that said, "Incredibly valuable treasure buried here." Inside these tombs were the pharaohs, mummified and surrounded by everything they would need for the afterlife: golden masks, intricate jewelry, ornate furniture, precious oils, and priceless artifacts. This was a treasure trove beyond imagination. And despite the complex internal passages, the false corridors, the granite plugs, and the curses warned by priests, nearly every single pyramid was broken into and looted in antiquity. Grave robbing was a persistent, and sometimes even organized, problem. The builders were trying to create an eternal, secure resting place for their god-king, but they were failing. The sheer size and visibility of the pyramids made them an irresistible target. It was a constant battle between the tomb builders and the tomb raiders, and the raiders were winning. Imagine the frustration and the crisis of faith this must have caused. You spend decades and a nation's fortune to protect your pharaoh's journey to the afterlife, only for it to be desecrated, sometimes just a few generations later. This security nightmare forced the Egyptians to rethink their entire approach to royal burials. This leads us directly to the most significant change: a shift to secrecy and a new kind of tomb. If you can't protect a giant, obvious landmark, what's the alternative? You go underground, you hide. This is exactly what happened at the beginning of the New Kingdom. Around 1550 BC, the pharaohs abandoned the pyramid fields of the north and moved their royal necropolis hundreds of miles south to a remote, desolate valley near the new capital of Thebes, modern-day Luxor. We know it today as the Valley of the Kings. The logic was simple. Instead of a visible monument, the new royal tombs would be hidden deep within the limestone cliffs. The entrances were designed to be small, easily concealed, and buried under rubble once the pharaoh was interred. The focus shifted from outward grandeur to internal security. The tombs themselves were still magnificent, with long corridors descending deep into the earth, their walls covered in stunningly beautiful paintings and texts to guide the pharaoh into the afterlife. But from the outside, they were meant to be invisible. This was a radical departure from the pyramid building tradition. Instead of broadcasting the pharaoh's power with a giant structure, they were now entrusting his eternal life to secrecy and stealth. For a while, it worked. The location of these tombs was a closely guarded state secret, protected by a dedicated police force. Finally, we have to look at the changing religious landscape. In the Old Kingdom, when the Great Pyramids were built, the state religion was heavily focused on the sun god Ra. The pyramid shape itself, the benben, was a solar symbol representing the primordial mound from which life emerged, and the rays of the sun descending to earth, creating a stairway for the deceased pharaoh to ascend to the heavens and join the gods. The pharaoh was seen as the son of Ra, a divine being whose power was absolute. But by the time of the New Kingdom, things had changed. While Ra was still important, another god had risen to supreme prominence, Amun, who was merged with Ra to become Amun-Ra, the king of the gods. The power center of this new state religion was the massive temple complex of Karnak in Thebes. The priesthood of Amun-Ra became incredibly wealthy and powerful, at times even rivaling the pharaoh himself. The state's resources, which once flowed into building pyramids for the pharaoh, were now being redirected into constructing colossal temples, pylons, and obelisks dedicated to Amun-Ra. The religious focus shifted from the pharaoh's personal tomb to the great communal temples of the gods. The pharaoh was still a divine figure, but his role was now more intertwined with serving the state god, Amun-Ra, and expanding his temples. Building a huge personal pyramid became less of a religious necessity. The path to eternity was now secured not by a stone mountain, but by the magical texts painted on the walls of a hidden tomb and the favor of the powerful god Amun-Ra. So, the end of the Pyramid Age wasn't a sudden collapse, but a gradual evolution driven by practical and spiritual needs. The crippling cost and resource drain made them unsustainable. The constant threat of grave robbers proved they were a failed security system. This led to a strategic pivot towards hidden, underground tombs in the Valley of the Kings, a brilliant innovation in its own right. And underlying it all was a fundamental shift in religion and power, where the grand temples of the gods overshadowed the personal monuments of the pharaohs. The pyramids were not a failure, they were a product of their time, a spectacular chapter in Egyptian history. But like all great empires and traditions, Egypt adapted. It moved on, creating new forms of art, architecture, and religious expression that were just as breathtaking. The spirit of the pyramid builders never died. It simply found a new, hidden home, deep beneath the desert sands of the Valley of the Kings. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this journey back in time fascinating, please hit that like button, subscribe for more adventures into history, and let me know in the comments what ancient mystery you'd like us to explore next. See you next as we explore the legacy of Giza. Have you ever looked at a picture of the Pyramids of Giza and just felt awe? It's a feeling that has connected humanity for thousands of years. These aren't just piles of stone. They are a legacy written into the very fabric of our world, a story of how three ancient structures forever altered the course of history. Let's start with the basics. The Great Pyramid of Giza is the last man standing, the sole survivor of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. Think about that. While the Hanging Gardens of Babylon and the Colossus of Rhodes have crumbled into myth and memory, Giza endures. For over 3,800 years, the Great Pyramid was the tallest man-made structure on Earth. It was the original skyscraper, a testament to what humans could achieve when they aimed for the heavens. But Giza's influence isn't just about size, it's about inspiration. For centuries, these pyramids have been a siren call to the boldest and brightest minds. Imagine you're an architect in ancient Rome or a builder during the Renaissance. You hear tales of these perfectly geometric mountains of stone. They become your benchmark, the ultimate challenge to measure your own skill against. The precision, the alignment with the stars, it wasn't just construction. It was a masterclass in engineering, mathematics, and astronomy all rolled into one. From grand cathedrals to modern skyscrapers, the ambition to build something monumental, something that lasts, owes a spiritual debt to the pharaohs of the Old Kingdom. And what about the explorers? Long before the age of tourism, Giza was a destination for adventurers, scholars, and treasure hunters. Herodotus, the Greek historian, wrote about them. Roman emperors visited them. Napoleon Bonaparte stood before them with his army, famously telling his soldiers, "From the heights of these pyramids, 40 centuries look down upon you." Each visitor took a piece of Giza's mystery back with them, spreading its legend across the globe and fueling a desire to understand the world's ancient past. This curiosity was the seed from which modern archaeology grew. Speaking of archaeology, Giza is still giving up its secrets. It's not a static museum piece, it's a live archaeological site. Today, we're not just using shovels and brushes, we're using cosmocramuons. Yes, you heard that right. Scientists are using cutting-edge particle physics to scan the pyramids, peering inside the stone without moving a single block. These scans have revealed hidden chambers and corridors, voids that have been sealed for millennia. This is the Scan Pyramids project, a beautiful fusion of ancient mystery and 21st century technology. Every new discovery reminds us that there's always more to learn. It's like history is unfolding in real time, proving that the past is never really past. This blend of old and new is perfectly captured by the view from Giza itself. You stand on the plateau, the timeless pyramids before you, and in the distance, you can see the sprawling, modern skyline of Cairo. It's a powerful visual. One represents the dawn of civilization, the other, the hustle of our contemporary world. They coexist, a reminder of the incredible journey humanity has taken. The pyramids aren't isolated relics, they're the anchor point of a continuous story. Ultimately, Giza is more than just a historical site. It's a symbol. It represents the peak of human ambition, our collective drive to create something that outlasts us, something that speaks to future generations. When we look at the pyramids, we don't just see the power of pharaohs. We see the ingenuity of the thousands of workers, the mathematicians who calculated the angles, and the astronomers who aligned the structures with the cosmos. We see a reflection of our own potential. Think about it. In a world where so much is temporary, Giza stands as a permanent reminder of our capacity for greatness. It inspires us to think bigger, to dream bolder, and to build our own legacies, whatever they may be. These structures didn't just change the ancient world. They continue to shape our modern one, challenging us to look at the horizon and ask, what will we build that will last for 4,500 years? The legacy of Giza isn't just carved in stone, it's etched into the human spirit. It's a story of wonder, discovery, and the unyielding ambition that drives us forward, and it's a story that is far from over. Thanks so much for joining me on this journey through time. If you found this as fascinating as I do, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next exploration into the world's greatest mysteries. See you next time.
As we close this chapter of the Chrono Archives, remember, the past is never truly gone. It waits patiently in the shadows of forgotten ruins, in the echoes of ancient voices, and in the timeless lessons that still guide us today. It waits to be remembered by curious minds like yours. Thank you for joining us on this extraordinary journey through the annals of time. If today's exploration of lost civilizations, mythical legends, or historical enigmas ignited your passion for the past, hit that like button. Drop a comment with your favorite moment or what you'd love to see next, and most importantly, subscribe to the Chrono Archives and continue the journey through time. Turn on notifications so you never miss an episode where we unearth buried secrets, decode ancient mysteries, and bring history's greatest stories back to life. Together, we'll keep the flame of the past burning bright. Until next time, fellow time travelers, keep questioning, keep discovering, and keep remembering. The Chrono Archives, where the past lives forever.